Welcome back, my dear students. We are again before you along with our dear scientist Callis Barak. Science and Hope of Survival. Who wrote this lesson? It is Callis Barak, a Russian writer. And in the last class, we were discussing about the Cold War and the theories studied by Callis Barak. What did I say about the Cold War? Cold War is a restricted rivalry between the two blocs in the world, USA on the one side and USSR on the other side. USSR is the present Russia. Yes. Now, let us move on to the next part. All of you open your textbooks and look at your paragraph number 4. The summons came from the president of Russian Academy of Sciences. He had received a message from the Palace of Nations in Geneva, where technical experts from the Soviet Union, United States and United Kingdom, three powers possessing nuclear weapons, met behind the closed doors. The president showed me a letter from Geneva. An American scientist, Frank Press, quoted my work while arguing with Moscow expert. And to my great surprise, I found myself in Geneva. Yes, here it was 1960 and the height of Cold War. Cold War was in its zenith and it is going to reach an uncontrollable level. And at this time, the major powers had decided to come to an agreement. They had decided to bring an end to this kind of suspicious status. And here, so the major leaders thought of seeking help from the technical experts, scientists. So, summons came even for our writer, that is Callis Barak. Summons came from the president of Russian Academy of Sciences. Summons, what do you mean by summons? Summons is call. So, summons came from the president of Russian Academy of Sciences and he had received a message from the Palace of Nations in Geneva. So, the president of Russian Academy of Sciences had received a message from the Palace of Nations in Geneva. And here in Geneva, the technical experts from Soviet Union, United States and United Kingdom, the three major powers, UK, USSR and USA. The technical experts from three major powers had joined together at Geneva. Three powers possessing nuclear weapons met behind the closed doors. These three major powers met behind the closed doors. What do you mean by closed doors? Closed doors means secretly, very secretly. The president showed me a letter from Geneva. Here in this meeting, the president shows a letter to our scientist, that is Callis Barak. A letter is showed to Callis Barak and to his surprise, an American scientist. Do you know who is that American scientist? Do you know any scientist, any American scientist? I have introduced him in the last class to you. Can anybody remember? Can anybody tell me who is that American scientist? Yes, it is none other than Frank Press. See, this is Frank Press. Frank Press, an American scientist, and he is also a geophysicist. Like our writer Callis Barak, even Frank Press was a geophysicist. He was an advisor to the American presidents. And an American scientist, that is Frank Press, quoted my work while arguing with Moscow experts. See here, my refers to Kellisberg. His works were on, yes, his works were on seismic waves. His works were on seismic waves, and this theory is being quoted by an American scientist in Geneva. And he quoted our scientist's work while arguing with Moscow experts. So, at once our writer Kellisberg found himself in Geneva. Why does he show this expression? Why does he say that I found myself in Geneva? Why does he say this? I found myself in Geneva. Surprisingly, he says I found myself in Geneva. Why? Because his theories are used in Geneva by an American scientist. So, it surprised him. Earlier in the last class I have told you he was very much involved in his theory. He enjoyed the mathematical challenge, but he never had a thought that it may come to use in the real life, and now he was surprised because his theories are used in this discussion. So, he feels very happy, and he says and he expresses that he feels himself in Geneva. Shall we move to the next paragraph? Yes. At that time, every man, woman and child on the earth lived under the threat of annihilation by nuclear weapon. Each superpower had more than enough nuclear bombs to destroy the others in the first strike. But in the 20 minutes it took for the rockets to reach their targets, the other side had plenty of time to launch retaliation strikes, ensuring the destruction of their enemies only a few minutes later. This threat of mutually assured destruction, what is that? Mutually assured destruction. This threat of mutually assured destruction with ominous acronym MAD was for some years the only thin thread protecting all of us from the common fatal fate. Continuing nuclear tests meant development of even stronger bombs, introducing even more imbalance into the global nuclear standoff. The three nuclear powers were willing to come to an agreement, putting a ban on the nuclear weapon test, and hence the technical experts were summoned to solve the problem that arose. Yes, at that time, at the time of this Cold War, at the time of this extreme rivalry between the two blocs, every man, woman and child, every man, woman and child on the earth had a fear, and they lived on this earth under the threat of annihilation. What is annihilation? Annihilation means complete destruction. Every man, woman and a child had the fear of getting destroyed completely. So, they lived in that fear only. By nuclear weapon, because both the sides are trying to increase their power, they are trying to increase their weapons, their military strength, and everyone on this earth lived with a fear of getting destroyed. Each superpower had more than enough nuclear bombs to destroy the others in the first strike. At a single strike, the whole of the enemy will be destroyed. So much strength was earned by both the sides. So, each superpower had more than enough, means sufficient, more than enough nuclear bombs to destroy the others in the first strike, destroy the others, enemies in the first strike at a single stroke. At a single strike itself, the whole of the enemies will be destroyed. Such strength was earned by both the sides, by USA bloc as well as by the USSR bloc. But in the 20 minutes, means within 20 minutes, but in the 20 minutes, it took for the rockets to reach their targets. It took for the rockets to reach their targets. To reach their targets. Suppose if they use a nuclear bomb, if they launch a nuclear bomb, it may take about 20 minutes to reach the target and destroy the enemy. But see, that was a sufficient time, and that 20 minutes was a sufficient time for the enemy to retaliate. That so here, but in the 20 minutes it took for the rockets to reach their targets. The other side had plenty of time. The 20 minutes of period which it takes to reach the target and destroy the other side, and that 20 minutes was more than sufficient for the other side, for the enemy side to retaliate. That is, see, plenty of time to launch retaliation strikes, ensuring the destruction of their enemies only a few seconds later, only a few minutes later. So, both the sides will be destroyed with few minutes of difference. So, if once the power uses, one side uses the nuclear weapon and reaches the target by 20 minutes, and that 20 minutes was more than sufficient for the other power to prepare itself and give a retaliation. So, both the sides will be completely destroyed. This threat of mutually assured destruction, both the sides were mutually assured of getting destroyed, and that is MAD. What is this? Mutually assured destruction. So, both the sides had a fear of getting destroyed. This threat of mutually assured destruction with ominous acronym, which is very popular but negatively, from the negative side. So, here with the ominous acronym MAD. Do you know what is an acronym? Acronym is a new word made by using the first letters of many words. Have you heard of this? Acronyms? Acronyms are the words made by using different words, using first letter of different words. For example, here in this case, MAD, that is mutually assured destruction. Mutually assured destruction. Mutually, M of mutually, A of assured, and D of destruction together forms an acronym MAD. So, mutually assured destruction with the ominous acronym MAD was for some years the only thin thread protecting all of us from the common fatal fate. Only this saved us, because both the sides were very clear that if we use any nuclear weapons against the other side is equally competent of retaliation. What is retaliation? ಪ್ರತಿರೋಧಿಸುವುದು ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ರತೀಕಾರ ಪಡೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳುವುದು. So both of them knew it very well. If we give an action, the action will be definitely retaliated and both of us will be destroyed. They were very sure of getting destroyed, and the only this thought, that is mutually assured destruction, is a single thread that saved the whole world from the fatal fate. What is fatal fate? Fatal fate means death, end. So saved us from the common fatal fate. Continuing nuclear tests meant development of even stronger bombs. Continuing nuclear tests, making more and more nuclear tests. It means having more number of and sophisticated bombs, owning more and more nuclear bombs, introducing even more imbalance into the global nuclear standoff, into the global nuclear standoff. So continuing nuclear test, if the nuclear tests are going on continued, what happens? Both the sides will try to increase their weapon strength. Both the sides will start piling up more and more weapons with them, and it will spoil the balance. It will make imbalance into the global nuclear standoff. Global nuclear standoff means from static place we have, it leads to movement, it leads to imbalance. Standoff means this kind of situation. If the nuclear tests are increased, what happens? See, this is standoff, and if the nuclear tests are increased, the balance will be removed, it will be imbalanced. If here there is more nuclear weapons, it will be like this, and if this side, other side, if they try to increase their nuclear weapons, it causes imbalance from the other side. So therefore they had a fear of getting imbalanced global nuclear standoff. The three nuclear powers were willing to come to an agreement. Now they had no other way than to come to an agreement to end this nuclear piling or increasing nuclear weapon. So the three nuclear powers, who are the nuclear powers? USA, UK and USSR. The three nuclear powers were willing to come to an agreement. Now these three powers are ready to come to an agreement. What is the agreement? Agreement of putting ban on nuclear test. That is the only solution. That is the only solution which can save the world from this kind of state, this kind of Cold War. So the three nuclear powers were willing to come to an end, come to an agreement, putting a ban on the weapon test, putting a ban on the nuclear weapon test, and hence the technical experts were summoned to solve the problem that arose. In the beginning of the paragraph number 4, in the beginning of this class, I have told you summons came from the president, of USA Academy of Science, the Russian Academy of Sciences. Summons came from the Russian Academy of Sciences to our scientists. Now did you understand why were they summoned? Why were they called? These technical experts are called to solve the problem that may arise because of this piling of, piling means increasing, storing of nuclear weapon. Now the politicians, the leaders, three major powers, nuclear weapon holders, or you can say the three major powers had decided to come to an agreement by putting ban on the nuclear test. And at this juncture, at this situation, the politicians remembered the scientists and they had found hope in the scientists. Scientists will solve this crucial situation. Scientists will find an answer to this kind of tough situation. So, summons were given to the scientists, technical experts throughout the world. So, in this difficult situation, the political leaders gave a call for the technical experts from each these powers. In formal terms, the problem was the following. See, actually, the politicians have come to an agreement and three major powers, three nuclear powers have decided to bring an end to the use of nuclear weapon, and they have thought of starting disarmament. They have thought of implementing disarmament, and here there were a lot of problem, and this problem has to be tackled only with the help of technical experts. So, in formal terms, the problem was the following. But is it easy? Do you think it is easy? Is it easy to bring an end to the testing of nuclear weapons? No, it is really a very complicated matter. So, what were the problems then? See, suppose that the nuclear powers had signed agreement to stop the test of the nuclear weapons, and one of the participants had violated this agreement and secretly made an underground nuclear explosion. The problem is, how can the other power detect the violation? How can the other power detect the violation? Did you understand what is the problem? See, actually, here political leaders have come to an agreement to stop testing of or ban testing of nuclear weapons. But now the real problem lies in the implementation stage. So, what is the problem? See, suppose if the nuclear powers had signed an agreement to stop the testing of nuclear weapons. Now, there is an agreement signed between the nuclear powers about the ban of testing of nuclear weapons, and one of the participants, there are three major powers, and if one of the participants had violated this, what is violating? Not following the norms, not following the rules. If one of the participants had violated this agreement, secretly made an underground nuclear explosion. So, what is the solution? How can we find that he had tried underground? See, it is banned on the ground and in the space, etc. But if any of the powers used the nuclear weapons or tested nuclear weapons from underground, how to find it? It is really a violation of the norms. It is really a violation of the agreement. Agreement was that they have to stop testing of nuclear weapons anywhere. But in case if there is any violation, how to find it out? So, for that they had to call the technical experts. And what is our writer expert in? What is the field of study of the scientist Kalisberg? It is seismic waves. His theory was seismic waves. He studied the theory of seismic waves. In the earlier paragraph I have told you, he had no idea that his theories of seismic waves will be used in the real life, and he will be surprised when Frank Press, an American scientist, quoted his theory in the meeting. He quoted his theory while arguing with another scientist of Moscow. He is surprised. It Can I use my study, can I use my theories in the real life to solve the present problem of Cold War, to solve the present problem of implementation of nuclear test ban? So, here the technical experts are summoned and the problem is how can the other power detect the violation? How can the other power detect the violation? Can you guess, my dear students? Can you guess how can we detect the nuclear weapons explosion, or if anybody made an underground nuclear weapon? See, above the ground or on the ground or in the space we can see. But if any of the powers use nuclear weapons underground, how to find it out? So, that was a big question in front of the politics. So, in order to find an answer, the politicians had to rely upon, politicians had hope on the scientist. So, now the science and the scientists are the hope of survival for the politicians. Let us see in the next class what is the answer that scientists bring in. Thank you very much.